Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello. Oh, I'm so pleased to see everybody. Thank you for being here. This is so much fun. Um, so I have a strange name. My name is spelled all E's, but it sounds long A. And everyone, not everyone, but many people get kind of weirded out and they don't want to say my name because they don't want to say it wrong. So it's okay. It's just one of those things, right? So it's Therese, but if you call me something else and you do it with kindness, then I will answer you. Uh, so let's see, where do I want to start? First thing I want to do is I want to talk about the drawing for this little class. And I went on random.org and had a number generated for me. So I chose the first I didn't, random.org chose the first person to win this course. And that was Linda. And I'm not going to say last name or email or anything like that because I don't want to, I don't want to step on privacy toes or anything like that. So I've emailed Linda. So she should know. But I wanted to let you all know I'm going to give another one away again on Tuesday, and another one on Wednesday, and another one on Thursday. So if you've already entered once, you don't need to enter again. I'm just going to keep looping through all the numbers each day. And if you haven't entered, go enter because there's three more chances to win. So, okay. So when I looked at the thread, oh, and I need to let you know, I am like really not good about following the comments thingy. Um, I'm getting better with technology. My skills are expanding. How about that? We'll keep it all positive. Okay. So let's talk about my course. And today the exercise session that I have today is doing this Milagro heart collage. And it is a prompt on journaling about fear. So it's a double-sided piece of paper, and one side you write about whatever fears or anxieties you're having right now. And then on the other side of the paper, you get in touch with your inner wisdom and your inner compassion. And you get in touch with that part of your heart that knows what you need to know about those fears and those anxieties. And then so on the other side of the paper, you're tapping into your inner wisdom and journaling some inner wisdom for yourself. And then putting a Milagro heart collage on top of it. And that seals it. For me, that's symbolic of like a wish and a prayer, asking for a miracle to help work with these fears. And we all have these fears. We all have human brains. And part of the way we're wired is we all want to belong, and we all want to feel worthy, and we all want to feel like we matter and that we can have impact. So when things pop up in our life and in our circumstances where our brain goes, whoa, wait a minute, I feel a little bit threatened, then those fears start popping up. And sometimes it leads our inner critic to start giving us a lot of negative feedback, because that inner critic, what it's actually trying to do is it's actually trying to keep you safe. So in this really bizarre way, your inner critic really loves you and is trying to take care of you, trying to keep you out of those scary situations that might be dangerous. The problem, though, is that the way we grow is really to expand outside our comfort zone, right? Is to get on those edges of our comfort zone. And they're scary. They're scary. So this is a very human brain thing to do. And so that's one thing that I can do for myself, is remind myself, oh yeah, there goes my brain. It's doing its human brain thing. And it kind of gives me a little bit of a breather to be able to then think, do I want to stop because I'm scared, or do I want to push myself a little bit out of my comfort zone? So that's what I think for me, that's what this helps do. So there's the first part. And then the second part, my free gift, is then making this journal. And I actually have 3 different variations with me right now. And each cover, you will see me make the paper that makes each cover for these 3 variations. So there's this one. I have a butterfly on there. That's a visual symbol I use a lot. I have some sea glass I collected walking on the beach. And then I've made this collage, and there's kind of some oceany feeling to it. And then I have this wrap that I dyed. This is a piece of flour sack dishcloth. I think that's what they're called. And so I dyed the fabric and then ripped off what I wanted to make the little tie. So, and then I've got this little dangly bit that has a seashell and some little beads and things. And when I bound the book, I have some little beaded dangles on the ends of the strings. So that's the first version. And then I have another version I made. So this one has sari ribbon as the tie, but again, some more little beaded dangles. And this is another piece of my art that I glued on the cover. And then the third one I have, this one I did not put a tie on. And this was my rainbow colored one. And again, there's another piece of my artwork on there. And this is also another piece of my artwork on there. So you can make quite different variations depending on what ink you decide to use on the cover when you're making this. So that's 2 of my things. My presentation was the Milagro Heart Collage, talking about our fears and tapping into our inner wisdom. And then my free gift is the actual construction of this art journal. And when I made this art journal, I made it just with plain printer paper. So very inexpensive paper. You can, of course, if you want to use like lightweight mixed media paper, you could do that. I wanted to make it accessible and easy so people wouldn't have to go out and necessarily purchase special supplies. So the inside of this journal then is filled with more examples of expressive art. So every page in here has something different. And these are all taught in the course that's part of the Artisan Pass. If you purchase the Artisan Pass, you will get the course that would then fill up this art journal. And that's 30 days of making expressive art. Now, you don't have to do 30 days in a row. That's a lot. That's a lot. And that can be intimidating. And then you feel like you're running behind, and that's not fun. No one wants to feel that. But it's just 30 different ideas, and you can repeat, as time goes on. You can have it, you could say, oh, I'm going to do 1 a week, and it would last you 30 weeks. You could say, I'm going to do 2 or 3 a week. You can, just say, I'm going to do a few now and a few later. And so don't feel compelled that you need to do it every single day. You certainly don't. Okay, so I've done a lot of blah, blah, blah talking. So I'm looking at this this chat thing, which I've totally lost track of. I'm used to teaching in a real classroom where people actually raise their hands. Okay.
We can raise our hands.
Yeah, if you want to raise your hand. Is anyone wanting to say something?
I just had an aha moment when you were showing about the wraps.
Yes.
because I bought a bunch of scarves that were really nice. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with any of this kind of fabric. Sometimes, so I thrift fabric a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I just love the print. And I
Mm-hmm.
have no idea what to do with it because it's not thick enough to do a lot of things. So
Right.
now I'm going to try that.
Yes.
Thank you
Yes.
for that idea. It's
Absolutely.
fantastic.
And I have another journal, and of course I can't find it right now, right? Like, why would I have every other journal but that one. But there's another one I made where I took a little bit of lace, and I took a little bit of a fabric strip, and I took a little bit of sari ribbon, and I just sewed the edges and made a longer piece out of it. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Very
it's
cool.
really, the sky is the limit. One of my favorite things to say is there are no art police. There really isn't. Uh, I think we maybe like to think there is. Maybe, I don't know if it makes us feel safe, or if there's some people that say there is art police because they don't want you exploring out of the box. I'm not sure, but there's really not. There are some guidelines and principles that could support you in creating art you like the look of better. Um, but that's not necessarily the goal of art. I think for me, I think art is a communication. And um, when I'm making art, I'm communicating with my piece, and it's communicating back to me. And as I put something down, as I make a mark or I put down a piece of collage, then I'm going to respond to that piece and put something else down. Um, Now I have to say I am not the type of artist that starts my work with a finished picture in my brain. I'm not a realistic artist. So you know, maybe it's different for people that create art that way. I don't know. But for me, it's very much it's very much kind of like an intuitive dance, a going back and forth. And that's why I think of it like a conversation. And when I make something, so let me show you something I've made. Okay, so this is in another journal. So there's this collage, and this is a collage that has a lot of symbology that's important to me. And then again, there's another Milagro heart on it, and this time it's drawn on there over the collage. Um, when I made this collage, I was having a certain dance and communication with my artwork. But now that the collage is done, I could have a different conversation with this artwork. I could ask this artwork on any given day, and it would be different. I could say, what do you want to say to me? What's important for me to know today? And this collage could then have a conversation with me that's tapping into my inner wisdom, and I could journal out what that conversation is. Does that make sense? When you all look at this collage, you're having a conversation with it also. And the conversation that you're having with it is going to be completely different than the conversation I had with it. And the conversation I had with it when I made the collage is going to be a completely different conversation than I would have with it today when I would, you know, ask those tapping into my inner wisdom questions. So that's why I think there's no art police, because the art is coming from inside you. And how can someone else tell you? Well, I mean, they could tell you you're wrong, but it doesn't matter what they say, right? Because it's yours, it's you. All right, philosophy done. What else should we talk about? Um, Covers or beaded dangles. Yeah. Where do I source my sari ribbon? Okay, so I got it from Etsy. I think it might have been a darn good yarn. Does that sound, someone who does Etsy? I don't do Etsy a lot, but that might be the name of the shop, a darn good yarn or something kind of like that. Um, Oh, I love all of this mindfulness. Yeah. It's for me now, okay, so my history is I've always been creative. I grew up in the 70s, so I was exposed to all those macrame and tie-dye and all those things that are back again, right? And but I never had like art lessons or anything like that. And then when I was in college, I needed to take one of my options for one of my GE classes was an art class. So I took a composition and design class and I absolutely fell in love. So that was my first introduction to really official art classes was when I was in college. I was a psychology major, so I was not going in there for art, but I just absolutely fell in love with it. And then just every chance I could get, I ended up taking another art class and another art class and another art class. And I'm actually, I have my elementary teaching credential. That's actually like what I went to school for. And when I was filling out my credential paperwork, my advisor at my college said, you know, you have enough art classes that you could have an art credential as well. You could teach art. I said, oh, cool. So totally unplanned, right? Kind of going in the back door. And so that's actually what I did. I got a job. I live in a tiny little rural town in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas, and I got a job at teaching art at a continuation high school. So I don't know if they call them that anymore. I think they call them alternative ed high schools. But anyway, so that's like kind of my history. And I taught art, high school art for a little over 10 years. And then had another child later in life, and then got an autoimmune disease, and then found myself in this really deep, dark pit of depression after, you know, after many years. And I couldn't get out. And I was tried therapy. I tried changing my diet. I don't eat gluten anymore. I have it now and again. I cheat, but anyway, mostly, and you know, low sugar and like all those things that are supposed to be bad for us that taste so yummy. And you know, exercise. And I tried antidepressants, and my body absolutely did not like antidepressants. I had all of the side effects that they put in those pamphlets. I had them. My body said, me, me, me. So I knew I had to find a different way. I had to find something else, because even though all those other tools helped a little bit, it wasn't enough. And so that's when I pulled back into my art making, and it became very personal. And that's when I delved into all of the expressive art, which is what I do now. Almost all of my art is expressive. Even here's one on a canvas. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's this is mixed media, so there's collage on there, and there's you know, different mixed media paints and things. This is even expressive art. This is me processing my emotions and my feelings and my experiences. So that's what I do with my art now. Okay, so what else? Oh, my color wheel is beautiful. Thank you. So that I did, that was one of the art classes I took, was a color theory class. Completely loved it. I'm one of those color theory nerds that I just love swatching paint and mixing paint, and I could do it forever. So much fun. Um, let's see. Oh, so there someone has a cousin with Therese as a middle name. That's great. Okay, so there's some new ones. Can you give a little insight into that expressive art piece? Was this the canvas? Is this the expressive art piece, the canvas here? Yes. All righty. So Susan, ask me, what kind of insight are you looking for? Do you want to know like what all is on there? I'll start from that angle first. So typically when I do canvases, or I often will paint larger pieces on watercolor paper because it's nice and stiff. Um, I often start with some type of mantra, very similar to what you will find in this little book of helpful thoughts. I hesitate to call them affirmations because for me, affirmations are a little bit triggering. The word affirmations is a little bit triggering. Because I want it to be okay for me to feel those negative, uncomfortable, unacceptable feelings. Does that make sense? And often I feel that affirmations are like a positive vibe only kind of thing, or we have to, we have to say this in every day and every way I'm getting better and better, or something like that. And my brain kind of, I guess I have this sort of quiet rebel inside of me that says, don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me how to think. I don't believe that, and I'm not going to believe that. And it just gets kind of snippy. So what I find is if I can find a way to twist that affirmation around a little bit so it's a little more believable for my brain, I tend not to get into this little snotty attitude teenager whatever. So like I'll put in there, I'm learning to, or let me see what I have. I'm growing out of, or I give myself permission to. So rather than saying I'm gonna, I don't know what, earn $10,000 this month, I'll do something like I give myself permission to move at the pace that's comfortable for me, or something like that. Does that make sense? So that's my twist on affirmations. That's why I call them helpful thoughts. So anyway, back to this thing, loop around, Therese, come back. Often I will start on the canvas before I've put any paint on here. I will write on there either with a watercolor pencil or an Inktense pencil, or a crayon even, or a Stabilo woody crayon, or anything that I could write on. It could be regular pencil. It doesn't matter. It could be a Sharpie pen. It doesn't matter. So first I'll write something because usually I'm feeling a certain way and I need to process whatever that is. And so I'll write something on the canvas and it gets totally covered. You can't see any of the writing anymore that's underneath all of this. Because then what I'll do is I'll go and layer. And on this one, I have swatches of different acrylic paint on there. And then I also have areas where I took high flow acrylics. Are you all familiar with high flow acrylics? They're very, very liquidy. They're like acrylic ink. They're like an ink consistency. The ones that I have personally are made from Golden is the brand. And I think they were probably originally made to like use in airbrush art, things like that, because it's super, super thin. It's super, super fluid. Yet because it's acrylic, it is a permanent, it's almost like a stain. So it won't reactivate if it gets wet. If you put more layers on top of it, it won't reactivate and smear. There's a little bit you can see. There's like a magenta drip here. I don't know if you all can see that, but there's a magenta drip, and that's the high flow. Am I doing that here? Let's do that there. So anyway, so then, so I've got acrylic, I've got my words on there, I've got my acrylic paint on there, I've got some high flow on there, and then I might find some collage elements that I want to put on there. This one has butterflies. Before I drew the butterflies, I put hand-drawn mandalas on there. Those are done with acrylic paint pens, like Poscas or Sharpies. I don't use oil base. I try to do all acrylic base for my paint pens. And then I drew my heart, this black heart. I drew that on there and added my little flourishes in the leaves. And then I came back on the edges. And with the edges, what I did is I made a glaze. So what a glaze is when you take your paint And since I'm using acrylic paint on this, you take your paint and you can use matte medium. You could use glazing medium. You could even use water. I tend not to just use water because I feel that it breaks the binder in the acrylic paint. So I tend to go with either matte medium, which is very fluid and liquidy, or with a glazing medium. Um, and I'll take a little bit of that acrylic paint and then I'll do a puddle of the medium and mix them together. And what that does is it takes the paint and makes it translucent. So what I did then, mine was kind of a turquoisey color, and I just went around the outside. So I didn't put any of the glazing in the middle of this heart. I just did it on the outside. So does that make sense? Okay. So I think okay, there's one other piece in here. So this white corner, do you see how it looks like this design has been etched in the paint? So what I had was heavy body titanium white paint. So it was the heavy body is the paint that comes in the tubes. And different brands, the paint that comes in the tube is of different thicknesses. And so you're going to have to kind of play around, and it will also, the humidity or dryness that you have in your environment is also going to affect this. But basically what I did is I took the heavy body paint, the thick paint with my finger, and I smeared it in this area. And then I took some type of tool. So it might be a chopstick, for example. It might be the end of a paintbrush, for example, and I scraped a design in there. So that's how I got this textured piece here. Okay. And this is done on canvas, but you can do these same types of effects in your art journal pages. Anything you could do on canvas or you could do on watercolor, you can do in your art journals or in your junk journals. Your papers are going to be different. So your paints will react differently because typically in junk journals and art journals, you have lighter weight papers. So for instance, if you wanted to do this carving thing in a junk journal, and let's say you had an old dictionary page was your substrate, you would need to be more gentle. Does that make sense? Okay, what else? Makes sense, thanks to you. Okay, fine. Hard to cover layers upon layers. Covering up something, oh, that is so hard because you kind of fall in love with something you've done, right? And then you don't want to cover it up because you love it. So that's why junk journals are so great, because there's so many pages in there. So then you can just go to another page and experiment again and say, okay, I'm not going to cover this one up because I fell in love with it, but I'm going to recreate the same thing and then I'll cover this one up. That might help. It's practice. It's practice. Sometimes what comes out of covering those layers is really stunning and beautiful. This was actually, at one point, I did not like this painting at all. To me, it was an ugly painting. It was still useful because I was using it as a way to process my feelings and experiences. So it was still useful, but I didn't like the way it looked. But then I kept adding layers and kept adding layers. And then I put the glazing on and I went, whoa, and it just made this middle section pop, having the glazing on the side. So that's a courage muscle to practice exercising. All righty, what else? Same issue with affirmations. Yeah, affirmations can be tricky. Some people are great with them. And so I'm not saying that they're all bad for everybody. I'm not saying that at all. We're all so unique and individual, right? I mean, it's so funny because we're so much the same with our human brains, yet we all have these little quirks, right? That just make us each individual. Um, okay, what's the meaning of the heart shape with the leaves? You use it on one of your pages too. So yeah, the heart shape with, I'm really big into hearts and Milagro hearts. They're just really symbolic of showing myself love, showing myself compassion, showing myself kindness, showing myself understanding. One of the things that I found to be most helpful for me in producing art I love, and I know I've got all this art training and I was an art teacher, so I know that shifts me into a different place for a lot of you. Um, More important than learning to think like an artist, I think for me was learning to befriend my inner critic. We're so hard on ourselves. You know, we see, because we've made it, we pick out all the flaws. We we can remember the process of making it, and how we felt and what was going through what was going through our bodies at the time, when what we were struggling with and what our challenges were. And so it's super, super easy for us to pick ourselves apart and just be mean and nasty, because I don't know about you all, but I can just be really mean and nasty to myself. I say things to myself I would never, ever say to anybody else. I would never say that to my children, ever. Um, and the flip side of it is there are times where I'm talking with a friend or I'm talking with one of my kids, and then there's this other voice going inside. You need to listen to this, Therese. You need to listen to yourself, Therese. You need to take your own advice, Therese. You need to believe this about yourself, Therese, because we will give all this love to other people. It just pours out of us. And it's really hard to give that same love to ourselves. So that's what my hearts are. That's what my hearts are. Okay. All righty. What else? And you all are so quiet. Okay, I'm on the second page, seeing if anyone is like waving at me. I don't see anything, and I don't see those little hand symbols. So excuse me while I take a minute to fumble with this. All right. So what else would you like to know? What else would you like to know? Or should I just open up some of my art journals? Should I open some of my art journals and show you? Okay, I'm going to show you the very first. This is the art journal that started all of this for me. So yes, okay. I've had lots of art classes. I've been trained to think like an artist. So I know I have that advantage going in. Okay. So we'll just admit I have that advantage going in. All right. And there's no reason you can't make the things that I'm making. Truly, truly. I taught angsty high school teenagers for over 10 years, and I was successful. So you can do it too. If they can do it, you can do it too. Okay, there's my pep talk. All right. So this book started it all. This is just a simple sketchbook, you know, that you get at like Walmart or Michael's or Joann's or wherever you buy your art supplies. Now everything's online, right? So I was homeschooling my youngest. My youngest was born with autism, ADHD, specific learning disabilities, auditory processing disorder, visual processing disorder, and intellectually gifted. So how's that for one package? So anyway, needless to say, regular school was not a good fit for him. So after first grade, I homeschooled him. And we were really, really fortunate in this tiny little town, rural community I live in. The next town over does have a charter school that is geared for people that are homeschooling their children. So thank you, thank you. I had some resources and I had some help. One of the resources where they would do enrichment classes. So you could take your student in and they could, you know, spend a couple hours in the morning doing an enrichment class. And they had things like Lego robotics and all this cool stuff that my son loved. So it was wonderful. So I would go into the library because I had to be there on campus because my son needed me. Um, and so I would go into the school library and I'd find a tiny little table in the corner, and I would bring my sketchbook, and I'd bring a couple magazines and a pair of scissors and a glue stick and a pen. That's it. That's all I would have. And I would just work quietly as long as I could, as long as he was consumed by these fun classes he was able to do. So I glued a little what are these little like treat bag things into the cover. So as I was cutting things out, if I didn't use them right away, I could slip them in the bag. So I just glue stick that onto the inside cover. And then the first collages I made were just a lot of grids. And I would just simply look through magazines and find pictures that I liked that pulled at me for some reason. And I would cut them into squares and rectangles, and I would just arrange them on the page. And that was about all I could do, quite frankly. I couldn't really design anything. I just, with the depression, it was all I had just to be able to function and do the things that I needed to do for my family. And doing anything creative was like super, super hard. My brain just couldn't handle it. So, but my brain could handle squares and rectangles. My brain could handle that. So that's what I did. I would just do, I would start and just do however much I could do. And then here, look at, I got really fancy and I cut a scallop. You can do this. And then every now and again, I would find words. So here's one: create a sandwich layering as follows. So that's here. And there's 3 hearts. A heart sandwich. Here's one: what calms you when you're stressed? So I did this one April 5th, 2013. That's when I did this page. So 10 years ago, 11 years ago, huh? And so that's how I started. I started really simply. Now, this next page I'm going to show you. Whew, I remember making this page. I totally remember all those feelings I was feeling at the time that I made this page. And it's just simply strips of color cut out and butted up next to each other and glued together. And then I just found words and put them on the edge, words that explained how I was feeling. Crazy life, distant, no rest, no vacancy, buried alive. I'll cry if I want to. Time out, survival, as close to the edge as I can go. How much longer? Fragile, exhausted hearts, every life notes, imperfection, let go. I mean, that's pretty powerful message that I was telling myself. And that's why this kind of art, this is why I say it's a conversation. I look at this page and I am back there. I am back in that library. I'm back at that table. I remember how I felt. I remember how chaotic my thinking was and how buried alive I felt. And I was simply doing whatever I could just to get through to the next day. And it saved me. Making this art saved me. Okay, so I've got more and more grids. Oh, now I've branched out and I went to circles. And this one is mostly monochromatic, meaning one color. Mono is one, chroma is one. However, there is a little bit of an orangey color thrown in there. And so this is now I'm able to think a little bit more. I'm able to think like an artist a little bit more because I've gone with monochromatic, I've gone with blue, and the opposite color, the complementary color of blue is orange. So blue and orange are opposite each other on the color wheel. So if you have a mostly blue picture and you put just a touch of orange in there, it will make the blue zing. Does that make sense? So now I can start actually thinking like an artist and being a little creative. But I had to go through all of those grid pages first. I had to just simply cut squares and glue squares and not think and just say, yes, that's pretty. Yes, I like that. Yes, that's pulling at me today. Does that make sense? I'm just like checking the comments really quick. Yeah. 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 If you've been in that place, I feel for you. Okay. Um, oh, here's fun. Here's fun. So this is another version of a monochromatic, but now it's in pinks, and now I cut all these little squares. And then I had this seeing past the negative and finding the positive. So I'm starting to crawl my way out. I'm starting to claw my way, climb my way out of that pit at this point. More grids. This one was fun. I liked this one. I remember doing it still. So this was one strip of a pattern, and I cut it in a big old scallop. And then I found an excerpt in an old book. I love to go buy old books at the thrift store. So I really like the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. I really like finding books that are in the self-development part, like anything from Wayne, is it Dwyer or Dyer? You know who I'm talking about. Leo Biscaglia wrote about love, so he has some nice things. So anyway, but I'll just periodically, every few months or so, I'll go and look through there. So this is what I found. Take a leap of faith, learn to embrace the gentle yearnings of your heart. You already possess all you need to be genuinely happy. What if you knew that a year from today, you could be living the most creative, joyous, and fulfilling life you could imagine? You already possess all the inner wisdom, strength, and creativity needed to make your dreams come true. So that's like, I don't know. There's a word for those. Manifesto? Would that be the right word? That would be mine right there. All right. Okay, so that was the one that saved me. What else can I show you? I'm going to jump ideas here. There was a little bit of talk in the Facebook group about sewing. And I think it was actually meant, do you sew your journals? Like, do you bind them with sewing, or do you bind them with glue or some other kind of thing? I immediately thought about using my sewing machine because I love using my sewing machine on my journal pages. So I'm going to show you. These journals don't have anything in them yet, but I sewed them together. So this is a stack of, there's a bill envelope. Oh, this one does have a little bit. This is the inside of a bill. Here's another envelope. Anyway, just a whole stack of things. And then I just clipped them, and I literally just ran it through my sewing machine to bind it. Can you see the stitching there? And here's the threads dangling. And then I originally got that idea when my son was born. My daughter started asking, well, when did I sit up? And when did I play with toys? And when did I stack blocks and all those things, right? And I went, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to get into scrapbooking and make my daughter a scrapbook. So I did. And there was a lady, she's still around. Her name is Amy Tangerine, is her brand name. And she made these books that were kind of remind me of like traveler notebook kind of things. And they had these transparencies. These were from a company called Hambly, which I don't think is in existence anymore. And then again, just filled with random papers. And I clipped it all together and just sewed it right through my sewing machine. It went through, I think there's about eight papers altogether in this little guy. Hand sewing. A really popular stitch is something called the pamphlet stitch, which I do a lot. But another stitch I like to do is just a running stitch. And I'll just poke a bunch of holes when I have my pages together in a stack, I'll have them clipped together with binder clips. And I'll just poke a bunch of holes, and it doesn't matter if you have an even number or if you have an odd number, and you just go in and out, in and out, in and out, go to the bottom, loop back around, and in and out, in and out, in and out. And then when you get to the top, you can just tie them in a knot. So here was my top hole, and here was the next hole. And so both of these had the thread coming out. And so then I just tied them in a knot and then dangled some, these are like clothing tags and stuff I painted. So that's a super easy way. And you can see it's not very precise. My stitching is not even. So I've got that one is done that way. Another easy way, if you don't want to sew, is punch a hole and put a binder ring. So these were, of course, because I did scrapbooking, I had these journaling cards I never used. They had a design on one side, and then the other side was just white. And so I just made a bunch of mandalas. And this was the first 100-day project I ever did. I did a hand-drawn mandala every day. And so then I just punched a hole in the cards and put them on a binder ring. So that's a super easy way. If you don't want to do any kind of sewing at all, that's a super easy way to bind an art journal. Do I date all my pages? No. Do I work on multiple journals at the same time? Yes. So this one has lots of pages in the back that aren't done yet. Let's see. This is one that you can tell I like these envelopes from this company that we all know, right? This is one that I have, it's heavier paper, it's mixed media paper. And I used it so that I could take notes for a class and also do some drawing in there. So like this has a drawing, this is glued on, but this has a drawing drawn on the pages. And so there's lots of empty, there's still empty here. So I could do more in it. I have a tiny little one. This is my teeny tiny journal. And I started this one 2 years ago after my mom passed away. And it's filled with lots of hearts and lots of butterflies. And the pages are about 2 inches square. And this one, I think I have maybe 1 or 2 pages left. And I just kind of do it as, as the mood strikes me, when I feel like, if I'm thinking about her a lot, or if something's happened that has triggered a memory for me. So I call it my transitions journal. Here's another one that I have that's not complete. This one was fun. This is made with shipping tags, and it kind of rolls over into itself. And what I like about this is these pages are bound. These are sewn with a pamphlet stitch. And then these pages here are clipped on, but they're sewn together at the top. So they kind of flip. And some of the things, let's see, do I have anything on the back? I haven't on this one, but you could, if you wanted to have something go on the back, you could do that. So that's fun. And then it also has this other little section here that's paper clipped on with a fancy paper clip. So these also come out. And these ones are sewn with my sewing machine right into the back of the book. So these ones flip. So that's fun. This one is mostly painting. So it started out as music paper and graph paper. And I just did layers and layers and layers of painting. and a lot of kind of floral-ish sort of inspiration. And again, I really like these goldenrod envelopes. There's just, maybe it's the teacher in me that likes goldenrod. Let's see. This is a fun one. This is done with one of those ring punching, I forget what they're called, but it punches the holes and then you can buy the ring things to clamp on it. And this one is a gratitude journal. And the way this one is made is on each piece of paper, I would rubber stamp the numbers 1 through 7. So that one had 1, 2, 3, 4 on the front and 6, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7 on the back. So I just had to come up with one gratitude a day. And inside this envelope, I've got cards, and they each have the numbers 1 through 7. So then when the book was done, I had enough for every single week of a year. And I didn't start it on a specific day, but what I know is there's 365 things that I'm grateful for in this book. And I could come up with one thing a day. That was doable. I could come up with one thing a day, even if it was I had yummy coffee that day, or the sunrise was gorgeous, or it could be very simple, or it could be something more elaborate. But that was easy to come up with, one thing a day. That was doable. What else? A cinch, yes. I don't know if mine is called a cinch. Mine is a little blue one with a handle that goes up and you pull down, and it has about 5 holes in it, I think. But I can't remember the brand name. But it's like a cinch. A zutter, maybe. A zutter. I'm trying to see if I see it real quick on my shelves. Yes, a zutter. You're right, a zutter. Okay, what else? What else can I ramble on? Oh, oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my journals, they really are, they're really a part of me. They really are. And we all have stories, right? And we all have, you don't know when you look at people, because so many of us are so high functioning, right? And we're going about our day and we're doing the best we can, and we're doing, and we're checking all the things off the list, and we have all these roles that we have to play. And we're trying to be as positive as we can, and as generous as we can, and as kind as we can. And so we pass. People don't know, we pass as if everything is hunky-dory, and people can't see that pain that's inside. I know that I do a really good job of hiding it, of not letting it show, unless I feel like I'm in a really safe place. So we just don't know what's inside, right? And for me, I had a friend ask me once, she was looking at my Instagram feed, and she said, "Are all of the things that you made really out of your pain? Because they're so pretty, right?" And I said, "Yeah, they are. They absolutely are." And for me, it's a pathway to transmute or alchemize or transform. I start in one place, and through the process of art, I can move myself. And it's not like I'm saying, I have to feel good today, I'm going to go make art. That's not how it is at all. And through that process, because I'm acknowledging my feelings, I'm giving them a voice. I'm saying, yes, it's acceptable to feel those. It's okay to feel those. And here's a safe place for you to put all of that down. Here's a safe place. Put it all down. Put it all down, Therese. Put it all down. So I can get it out of me, right? I don't have to carry it anymore. All right, what else? Someone asked, can you explain pamphlet stitch? Yes, pamphlet stitch. Okay, let me find. Pamphlet stitch is what we do in this book. We do a pamphlet stitch. I don't know why it's called a pamphlet stitch, but it is. I do what I like to do, and I don't get caught up in the history of something. I just go for it. So, pamphlet stitch. Okay, so on mine, these strings is what is binding. It's hard to see in here because it's painted and they're the similar color. But these strings are what is binding this journal together. So I poked 3 holes. I poked one about an inch from the top, one about an inch from the bottom, and one in the middle. I don't measure. I'm not a measurer. I'm an eyeballer. And if you like to measure, you can totally measure. You can get a ruler out and make them very precise. You can do that. And I don't. I don't worry about it. So 3 holes, one roughly in the middle, one roughly from the top, one roughly from the bottom. You can also do 5-hole pamphlet stitches and 7-hole pamphlet stitches, but 3 is really easy. So what you do with your thread is you decide, do you want your ties coming out of the inside of your book like mine are? So mine are dangling from the inside. Or do you want them coming from the outside of your book, dangling from the outside? I'm trying to see if I have one from the outside, and I don't think I do. No, mine are all from the inside. Okay, so you start, I'm going to say the inside because that's how I made mine, but you could certainly start from the outside. Wherever you start, that's where your ties are going to hang out. So you go in through your middle. You go to one of your edge holes. It doesn't matter which. So I went into my middle, and now my needle and thread are coming out from the back of my book. And then I go up to the top hole or down to the bottom. It doesn't matter. And I put my needle in, and now I'm coming out through this hole. And then I go all the way to the other hole. I skip the middle hole, go all the way to the other hole and put my needle in. So now I've got a really long stitch here. So my needle is now out here, and I put it back through the middle. So now I've got 2 coming from the middle, my starting string and my ending string. And then what I want those 2 strings to do is I want them to go on either side of that long stitch that went down the middle. I want them on either side. And then I tie a square knot. Does that make sense verbally when you can't see what I'm doing because I'm just explaining it verbally? Does that make sense? My triple cover workshop from today will show you exactly the stitch. Perfect. And that's the stitch I show in this book as well, as I show the pamphlet. I don't know there was a name to pamphlet stitch. Okay. Okay. Can you, okay. All right. Okay, so we're all good. Okay. I've like rambled all over. Ah.
You were great. You were fantastic. I love everything. I love listening to everybody today.
This is a really, really fun, because we're all kind of in the same groove, right? So that's really, really fun.